Yo, what's going on, guys? Everybody Glade here. Welcome back to another video. Now, I know I've not made a video for the longest time, and I am not guaranteeing that I make a lot more videos, but I do want to make this one because we did get some new VGC rules announced. And honestly, I've been playing the crap out of Series 10. I'll talk about Series 10 in a little bit, but just a little update for you guys. I'm kind of busy, and I just want to take my free time in a different direction than YouTube, so that's kind of why I've been not uploading as much to the channel. Meaning like I literally just haven't uploaded at all. But you know, I hope you guys understand. I might upload a little bit here and there. It honestly all depends on what I'm feeling like. I do like Series 10 though, so maybe I will. But I'm pretty busy right now with work, traveling, just working out, just a lot of hanging out with friends, stuff like that. And with my free time, I'd rather just do stuff on my own rather than sit here, record, and edit for a couple of hours. But I do want to get this video out because I think I kind of want to talk about some of the things in the format. But if you guys enjoy, smash the like button down below, and please consider subscribing. I can't guarantee I'm going to pump out more content, I'm going to be completely honest, but I can guarantee that some of the content that you will find on this channel is already excellent and definitely worth a watch. But let's get into today's video for you guys. So today, I want to talk about Series 10, and if you guys don't know what Series 10 is, it's the new rules that's going to come out August 1st for VGC, and basically, it's Series 8, so Series 8 was, you could have one restricted Pokemon on your team, like Zacian, like Xerneas, like Kyogre, like Groudon, like Calyrex, Shadow Rider. You can have those Pokemon on your team, just one. Also, you probably will see ads throughout this video. I don't know what the heck's happening here. I don't have ad block because I support the creators. Actually, let's just switch to Showdown. We're gonna talk about some stuff anyways. So trying to think here. But okay, so in this new format, Series 10, it's Series 8, but there's no Dynamax at all. So they got rid of Dynamax, which is huge, and you guys don't know how much that changes up the metagame. So Pokemon that used to be good, like Calyrex Ice used to be good, Dragapult used to be good, Colossal used to be good, but those are nowhere to be seen now. Nowhere to be seen. Like, absolutely nowhere. So I'm going to talk about the metagame right now, talk about the state of it right now, the innovation that has happened over the past couple of days, and I'm also going to talk about some usage stats because one person on Twitter, known as Cal Nissan or Gazoni, released top 50 usage stats, or top 100 usage stats, I should say, for these teams, and it honestly looks phenomenal. I'm really happy that he put that together, so we're going to take a look at that. But before that, I do want to talk about the actual format itself and where to play it. So if you guys don't know, you cannot play Series 10 on regular Pokemon Showdown. I actually cropped this out, but so you can't see it on my screen. But if you go to legacyvgc.us/teambuilder, so hold on. Let me just type it in chat here. So you see it at the bottom of chat here. This is what it looks like. This is the website you want to go to. legacyvgc.psm.us/teambuilder. That's what you guys want to go to in order to be able to play Series 10 ladder. You can see a bunch of people are playing it. And according to Cal Nissan, he collected over 91,000 battles. So a lot of people have been grinding. I myself have played, I think, about 100 games on this ladder. So I'm not saying I'm super experienced, but I definitely grinded. I grinded a lot yesterday. I've been grinding quite a little bit to look at the metagame, look at some of the changes, and I kind of want to talk about the metagame before we get into the usage stats, because Cal Nissan, the legend himself, I've met him in real life before. Honestly, from what I can tell, really nice guy. So give him a follow, give him some love, thank him for this usage stats. Really nice guy. Really doing a lot for the community with these usage stats because it's really awesome to see, so I can analyze, I can talk about it. So Cal Nissan Gazoni, perfect. One of the best, honestly, just such a good guy. Anyways, we are going to talk a little bit about what happened in these few days, because as of recording this, and I should upload this on the same date, is July 8th. I believe ladder started July 1st. So within those 8 day time frame, there's a lot of innovation. So what you saw first in July 1st is that a lot of people went with Ogre. When the format first started, a lot of people just took their Series 8 teams and they said, okay, what just hits hard as heck? and what can I just put so much offensive damage output? And that was Ogre. So they switched to Ogre. And so what they would do, it would be like obviously your Torn, Ogre, Aleki, Rilla, stuff like that. So it was just Ogre, 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 Ogre. A lot of Ogres, there's a lot of Zacian, but people took their old Series A teams and tried to innovate them. And some Series A teams aren't obviously going to be as good, like Calyrex teams aren't going to be that good. I mean, they can be good, but not necessarily just because Dynamax is gone, but we have seen Instruct Calyrex. But generally speaking, Kyogre dominated. Then we start to see people say, okay, well, I have Aleki and I have Rillaboom. And then so we start to see Kyogre used to go down just a little bit. We start to see the rise of some other archetypes, some actually pretty popular archetypes. Actually on my screen here in the Untitled 8, we have the Calyrex Ghost Rider, which is insanely good, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. That started to rise as well, but we also started to see the rise of Xerneas and, of course, Zacian. Those were the two. I need to stop looking over. Those were the two archetypes that were so good, guys. I cannot talk about them enough. They start to go up on the rise as ladder progresses. Heck, we'll even hop into battle here. Okay, let's see if we can actually find a battle. Lol. All right. Let's see if we can find a battle. Hold on. That was watch. All right, watch a battle. Let's see if we can find a battle. Oop. I forgot to mute that. Okay. But obviously some interesting teams. But we can see that Calyrex is it's a great Pokemon. So you start to see those pop up. You start to see people try to counter Kyogre with Aleki, with stuff like Rillaboom, with stuff like Tailwind. Obviously you can start to see that stuff sort of develop. So the metagame starts to develop, and lots of people started begin trying out different stuff. Zacian obviously rose in prominence. People started to figure out different counters. Some cores started to develop, like the Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu Water Core was incredibly good. We start to see Zacian develop into just a bunch of different things. Landorus Eye began to rise in usage just for its ability to Sheer Force Life Orb, Earth Power, Sheer Force Life Orb, Sludge Bomb. A lot of things in the metagame, having that one-on-one base speed, being able to outspeed Xerneas before it gets to Geo up and going for that Sludge Bomb. Incredibly important. I cannot stress enough how important that was. So we start to see the rise of Landorus as well. But then we also start to see, okay, people are taking Xerneas teams, we're adding like Indeedee, Incineroar, Amoonguss, stuff like that, but Xerneas struggles a lot with something like Zacian. Zacian teams are a huge nuisance for Xerneas. Now, Xerneas can still do quite a bit of damage to Zacian. I think like D-Gloom at +2 does 30%, and 30%, if you end up taking Chip throughout the battle, that does add up over time, since Zacian doesn't have any form of recovery other than grassy terrain. So you have to be careful, but Zacian is just good against Xerneas because it outspeeds without a Geo. You can one-shot with Behemoth Blade, or get close to one-shotting anyways. Just such a good Pokemon, such a good counter. So you start to see some like interesting new Pokemon pop up, such as Volcarona. Now, Volcarona, I remember seeing in 2019, it won a regional, I think by Jake Major, but he used like an Overheat Fire Z. Volcarona, so more offensive, obviously with the Rage Butter support, but this time we're seeing very defensive Volcarona. We're talking like 236 HP, 228 defense, bold nature, to be able to take on Zacian, to be able to take on Urshifu. And actually, if you run Volcarona with a Citrus Berry with that EV spread, I believe you can take Surging Strikes from Urshifu. So it's just really good being able to redirect, and also you have the ability Flame Body, which means that you have a 30% chance for contact moves to get that burn, which is like an air/flinch, but you're not Serene Grace, which I still think it's a good chance, and being able to redirect really neuters, I don't know if that's the right word, but like really prohibits Zacian from doing its job, because defensive Volk actually can eat some Zacian hits, and Zacian with that redirection obviously going out to target it, and there's a 30% chance that Zacian gets burned, and if Zacian gets burned, that just makes endgame a lot harder. It doesn't make endgame harder necessarily in the sense that you're not going to be able to hit Xerneas as hard. It does do that. But it's also, you want Zacian to be able to KO Incin, because Incin's going to be on almost, I'd say, every Xerneas team. And so once you get Incin around to 60-70%, if you're a neutral, Sacred Sword should pick up the KO onto Incin. And if you're a +1, or okay, if the Incin's around like 65%, Sacred Sword should pick up the KO. I'm not running full attack Zacian either, and I still pick up the KO most of the time, so that's what I'm kind of thinking. But like, it's very important, but Volcarona just puts a stop to station, so we start seeing Volcarona pop up everywhere, and in fact, I am running Volcarona. I think Volcarona is just incredibly good right now. It counters a lot of stuff in the meta if we're talking about stuff like Rillaboom. Now, it can't redirect Rillaboom necessarily because of Rage Powder gets ignored by grass types, but Volcarona just can eat Rillaboom's hits, deal a lot of damage back. It counters Xerneas somewhat well because you can Struggle Bug, you can Rage Powder away this Moonblast, like anything that gets Whirlwind as well. It counters Amoonguss as well. Amoonguss is very good. It's a good counter to a lot of mons. I need to stop looking over there. That's where my camera is so I can see myself, but I want to look up here. That's just necessarily like why Volcarona was so good. And so as we start to see Volcarona usage rise, it became apparent some of the top mons, and we'll get into those top mons in a bit, like Ensign, like Zacian, like Regieleki, all that stuff. And good water types are always going to be good in this format. And so another thing that I just recently started seeing to pop up is Arachnoquid. Because if you think about Arachnoquid, Liquidation, with Water Bubble, which doubles Liquidation's power. Some people opt for Life Orb Arachnoquid, which absolutely just decimates teams. Like, I think it did 70% to my Zacian with Liquidation, which is absolutely insane. And mind you, Arachnoquid is base 70 attack, but you're doubling your damage output with Liquidation and with the ability Water Bubble, and you're going Life Orb, so it's just a lot of damage. Also, Arachnoquid fills a pretty good niche in the team, being a good check, a decent check to a pretty good check to Rillaboom, because it gets Leech Life, and it's going to do a ton of damage. A great wide guard usage, so you can stop things like Calyrex Shadow in its track, and even if Calyrex Shadow does have Psyshock, I feel like you should relatively eat that for free and then get a nice stab Liquidation off. So you have that going for you as well. You're able to KO Ensign, and if you get this thing under Trick Room, it's just so good. So there's a lot of things going, and a lot of things in the meta developing, and then we saw the rise of Calyrex Shadow. Calyrex Shadow is one of those mons where I still find myself facing it a lot, and I oftentimes either I win against it either by just one-shotting the Calyrex, or I just get overwhelmed and I don't know what happens, and then I just get absolutely destroyed. I saw a Scarf Calyrex Shadow, which just completely threw me off guard. There's so many things that this mon is just so incredibly good at. Excuse me. But as it stands right now, the most used teams are going to be the Kyogre, the Zacian, the Calyrex Shadow Rider, and the Xerneas teams. Those are going to be your four main legendaries that I don't know why my mouse is freaking out. Your four main legendaries that you're going to see throughout the format. That's it. Just ignore my mouse freaking out. I don't know what the heck's happening. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, that's kind of the preface I want to go into. So now we're going to go on to Cal's tweet about the top 50 usage stats. So I'm going to go through them. I'm going to explain why obviously I think these Pokemon are there. Yeah, my mouse is still freaking out. Okay. Alright, so number one is Incineroar. Dude, my mouse like needs to chill. Holy crap. Alright, anyways. Number one is Incineroar. We already know why Incineroar is number one. I don't need to explain that. But I think it's even more apparent now that Calyrex Rider's out. But we don't need to explain that. Rillaboom being there is no surprise as well. I mean, just Aggressive Glide is so good. And being able to be one of the premier Kyogre counters is pretty good. And as we go down this list, there is going to be a Pokemon I'm going to point out that helps against Rillaboom. So I'm going to point that out. Wait, is it even in the top usage stats? That's my phone. Is it even? Yep, okay, it is. We'll talk about that Pokemon as well. Regieleki, obviously no surprise. Just it's so fast. It hits so hard. It's so good. I'm not going to go over these top mons as much because we already know why. We already know why they're here. We already know what their purpose is. We already know why they're here. We're going to talk about some of the lesser known. Zacian Crown, we already know why that mon's here. Urshifu Rapid Strike. Why is this mon? So you can look into, you see Urshifu Rapid Strike, and where's regular Urshifu? If we go down the list, where's regular Urshi? Regular Urshi is number 7, but why is Rapid Strike above regular? Well, number one, you get that water typing. Water typing is big in this format. The ability to one-shot Ensign's great. The ability to deal with number 6, Landorus, so much better, is great. The ability to deal with Xerneas better is great. The ability to deal with Volcarona better is great. The water typing just benefits Urshifu a lot more in this format specifically than in the past. There are some few matches where Wigglyblow might be better, maybe against like a Amoonguss and a Calyrex Shadow, but Most of the time, in my opinion, I think Urshifu Rapid Strike is just the better option. Landorus being high is kind of interesting, and this is not Landorus Therian. You see Landorus Therian's down below, and I actually think Landorus Therian is kind of meh. Like, it can be good for Intimidate spam, but I don't know. I'm not that big of a fan of it. But we see Landorus here. And why is Landorus I here? Obviously the incarnate, like the special one that gets Earth Power, Sheer Force, Life Orb. Why is that here? Well, specifically just because this bond hits so hard. If you look at number 1, it one-shots number 1. I think it one-shots or almost one-shots Rillaboom, and it one-shots Regieleki, it one-shots Zacian, it knocks Urshi down to Sash, it knocks other Urshi down to Sash, it does a lot to Xerneas, it does a lot to Volk. If it's carrying Rock Slide, it just picks up the KO. It does a lot to Amoonguss, does a lot to Calyrex, does a lot to like stuff like Feeny, Serena, Stack Attack, it one-shot Zapdos, it does a lot, Celesteela, it doesn't. But you can just go down the list and see that Lando just hits so many things hard and doesn't have too many switch-ins. And let's say your opponents want to play defensive against, Urshifu. Or you want to play defensive against Landorus, and they protect. You can sub up. A lot of people are running sub Landorus, which just makes this thing even more potent, getting off more attacks, having the ability to protect if you think your opponent is going to double up into it because Landorus is such a threat. That's why. Xerneas number 8, no surprise. Obviously without Dynamax, Xerneas is just so good. If it gets up its Geomancy, it's pretty hard to stop. I think it's easier now than in previous formats, in my opinion. Maybe that's just because I'm a more experienced player and I'm running Zacian. But there are often times when I still misplay against Xerneas. I still call a few turns incorrectly, and that can just change the course of the game. So I am striving to improve my Xerneas, how I play against Xerneas, because I'm a really good GS Cup player. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very good. But whenever it comes to Xerneas, I don't know. There's something inside me that just doesn't play right against it. Anyways, number 9, we see Volcarona. I already talked about Volcarona. I'm not going to talk about it again. Amoonguss, obviously Redirector, deals well with something. It is good on Xerneas teams. It helps with Ogre matchups, stuff like that. Calyrex Shadow, no surprise. You can run it with next to Indeedee. You can run it next to Mienshao. You can just go for Astral Barrage, like Helping Hand, Life Orb, Astral Barrage. You can go for Expanding Force. You can just Side Shock. You can just do so much damage and overwhelm the opponent so quickly. Having Redirection allows it to instant to not be as big of a threat, which is why I'm thinking. Excuse me. Which is why I'm thinking of maybe putting Snarl on my Incineroar, although I'm not so sure yet. But yeah, it's just such a big threat. All right, so now we see Tornadus. Tornadus, pretty good. Tornadus is just pretty good. It allows us to get up Tailwind. Obviously, we're not going to talk about Ogre. We know why Ogre's here. We know why Indeedee's here. But Tornadus, obviously, you're going to get the Tailwind up. You're going to get the Icy Winds, the Hurricanes off, specifically for the Kyogre. So that makes sense. We've seen that before. Landorus, Therian, it's just going to be an Intimidate spam. You actually have a pretty good matchup against Zacian teams with Landorus. That's the one thing I will say, because Zacian teams tend to run Zacian, Sinaleki as a core, which obviously having 3 Pokemon weak to ground isn't the greatest thing in the world, so it can honestly make the Landorus matchup pretty difficult, as it's hard to remove, because Landorus actually does have some decent bulk, so neutral Behemoth Blade should not be picking up a knockout. And Earthquake is just too powerful. So obviously that's why. Whimsicott, you're going to be seeing those in probably mostly side spam teams, something like Tapu Lele, Calyrex, Whimsicott, stuff like that. Jiggivis, something like that. Just hyper offensive teams. Whimsicott's going to be on there, because if you're running a Tailwind user, you're probably like, okay, Tailwind users in this format are really restricted to Rain and Side Spam. If you're running Side Spam, you're probably going to be running Winds. If you're running Rain, you're going to be probably running Torn. Feeny at number 17. I can't exactly explain why Feeny is where it is, but I did use Feeny for a while, and I actually really like Feeny because it's not passive, but it slows down the pace of the game. You can be able to eat hits better. You can get off some good chip damage and be able to take hits, and it's nice as a thing that slows down the pace of the game and helps you gain a little bit of board positioning while still being able to deal some damage and still be able to take hits. And also the Misty Terrain cannot be it's pretty good at blocking sleep here. Number 20, Serena. Serena, obviously, with the Queenly Majesty, is really good this time around at stopping fake outs for Ogre, and especially this time around for Rillaboom. Just think about it. Think about it, guys. Rillaboom gets Grassy Glide is priority, so Serena blocks it. So it's just, if you can get yourself in a position, and if your Serena isn't knocked down and you can get an Ogre, you can just destroy things. That's pretty much it. Mienshao number 19. It's really good on those Calyrex Shadow teams because it gets inner focus, so it can't be intimidated and can't be faked out. And you can just close combat to one shot most Incineroar. You have access to Wide Guard, so you have a way to deal with Kyogre most of the time around. You get fake out, access to fake out. You have access to feint as well, which is people are opting to run now. Mienshao is just a niche pick, but I think it's pretty good. Obviously, at number 19, actually, I wouldn't say it's niche. I think it's a good pick. But you are going to be seeing on those Calyrex Shadow teams. So a lot of the 8.12 Mienshao comes from the Calyrex Shadow teams. You don't really see it anywhere else. I used to run it on my Zacian team, but now I kind of switched. Just because I feel like there's a Pokemon that would better suit that role. Number 20, we see Stakataka. Obviously, Stakataka is going to be a premier Xerneas check, and up Trick Room is always good for just switching the pace of the game, because this meta is pretty fast paced, and if you can get up a Trick Room, you have the ability to just go for really powerful Jar Balls with Stakataka and just hit things so hard. So obviously it makes sense why Stakataka is up here. Celesteela, again, Xerneas Wall, and can Leech Seed to win games. Gothitelle, I do want to talk about. Gothitelle is very oppressive. With Fake Out, Helping Hand, Perish, Shadow Tag. It's really good because it's used mostly on Zacian teams. The teams that I think it's used on is Zacian, Gothitelle, Urshifu, Rillaboom, Alecki, Instant, something like that. But basically the idea is that you can trap something in with Gothitelle, and if your opponent doesn't have anything to deal with something like a Zacian, you can just freaking destroy stuff, and you have access to Fake Out, and I think they're running full speed. Gothitelle, at least some of them are. Or you can leave something like Rillaboom, Gothitelle, go for a Fake Out, go for a U-turn, and then pivot into something like Zacian, and then be in such a good spot. The pivoting option is great, so you can leave Gothitelle Instant, then Parting Shot off to weaken something, then bring in Zacian, and you're really well off. And with Rillaboom's and Instant's relatively low speed, those U-turns and those Parting Shots are relatively slow. So you're just going to be doing a lot of great work. Gothitelle also has the option for Hypnosis for some cheese. Gothitelle is very good. The ability Shot Take is one of the best in the game. Thundurus is just a support bond. It's literally just Area Impulse. It's pretty good. It's pretty good stopping, not stopping, but slowing down something like a Calyrex, a Kyogre, or something like that. Lele is your substitute for Indeedee if you want a bit more attack. I'm glad to see Lele usage be somewhat high again. I think Lele is a great mon, and it just hits pretty hard. Entei, number 26, it's going to be a Scarf Eruption, Scarf Sacred Fire mon, maybe a V sometimes, but it gets inner focus, so it can't be intimidated, it can't be faked out. You can go for Scarf Eruption, stuff like that, Scarf Sacred Fire, Snarls, Extreme Speeds, stuff like that. Very good Pokemon. Groudon, we're going to talk about this. Groudon, Venusaur, Porygon 2, Grimmsnarl, Torkoal. So those are all Pokemon that kind of go together, because normally you're not going to see Porygon 2 on a team unless it's a Sun team. Groudon, sitting low on usage makes sense, just because now that Calyrex and Kyogre usage have just skyrocketed, I don't think it's as good. And the fact that it's only one restricted means Xerneas also matches up better against it. Because normally you would have dual restricted, but Groudon like Zern could help against other opposing Zern matchups. I mean, Venusaur is still good. I just think with the amount of Fake Out, with the amount of redirection, I just don't know if it's as good here. But Groudon, you can still pre-blades. It still has a good matchup versus everything. I just think it's pretty. Sometimes it can be pretty underwhelming at certain spots. Torkoal obviously is another Sunsetter. As for Trick Room, Grimmsnarl is still good with screens. I feel like people might experiment with Grimmsnarl a little bit more, just because I think in some scenarios it could be good, especially if you're dual stab, like a Sucker Punch, Spirit Break. But at the same time, I do see why it's kind of dropping low in usage, because you can think about it like this: if there's Zacian, if there's Xerneas, Grimmsnarl just really has a tough place in the metagame. Although we still did see Grimmsnarl on Sun a lot, but that was because and Sun in Series 8. But that's also because Sun had a good matchup versus Zacian. Him on top, it's a Wide Guard user that can intimidate. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. It has a decent matchup against Steel types. And then Cinemark, that's also why Melodic, because of the amount of Intimidators. And it just being a semi-bulky water, and if you get a special attacker, a competitive boost, it can actually become a pretty big threat. Tapu Koko to block sleep, I think one of my personal favorite Tapu Koko sets to run in this format, even though I haven't played it, but I think a Assault Vest, Electroweb, Sky Drop, like Nature's Madness Wild Charge set could honestly be pretty good, or like a D-Gleam, something like that. That could be extremely good because it helps deal with Kyogre teams pretty well. And Yveltal teams, and even something like a Calyrex Shadow team I think would be good. So I think Tapu Koko definitely has a niche. Raichu being here, Raichu, you don't really see Raichu all that much. You might see an Orain sometimes, not all the time though. I think mainly you see number 35 and number 36. They really correlate well. Yveltal matches up well versus Calyrex. It has a good matchup versus Ogre, but Raichu is helping there. It helps Yveltal out for the electric weakness. Then we're going to go down Nihilego, it's a Trickermon, Ho-Oh, it can wall, Zacian, Kartana, I think it's just following usage just because the bulk is not good, especially in this specially oriented meta. Calyrex Ice, Trickham's good, if you can get a Glacial Lance off, it can do some damage for sure. I just think with Intimidate Spam it's not as good. Eternatus is annoying with Cosmic Power. A Cosmic Power, it can just Cosmic Power up. With Pressure, it can PP stall you and pretty much 4-0 you. I've been reverse 4-0'd by Eternatus, so it can just basically stall you out, go for like recovers, go for Cosmic Powers, go for Toxics, go for Flamethrower Sludge Bombs, all that good jazz. So I think one of the best things to do is just to hit this thing hard in the first couple of turns, try to remove it from the board if you can, because it can really reverse sweep. Moltres kind of makes sense, you know, being somewhat high just because Calyrex is prominent. Dracovish, obviously, you know, like, if you can get a Tailwind up, you can just fish just right and still powerful. It doesn't matter who you are. I probably does almost one-shot Zacian as well. It's just powerful. Talonflame, because there are a myriad of grass types in the metagame, grass and bugs, like Rillaboom, Xerneas, and Volcarona, or, excuse me, Rillaboom, Volcarona, and Amoonguss, and Serena. I think there's a place for Talonflame, especially because it's a Tailwind bond that can actually hit, and it can go for Blitz, stuff like that. I think it's pretty important. Gastrodon, I feel like Gastrodon's kind of too slow. It can fit on some teams, and I think it's more of a late game Pokemon once your opponent has exhausted a lot of the resources. I don't really see it. Ferrothorn, I think, is too slow in this metagame. If you can get an Iron Defense Bio Press up, I think that's the only way to use it. I just don't see the value of Ferrothorn. Ludicolo, I mean, you could argue Ludicolo on rain teams, and maybe I'm missing out, maybe I'm not understanding, but I don't like Ludicolo. I just think its power, like, it can hit decently hard, but I think its power is mostly underwhelming. But we'll see. Politoed, I don't really get Toad. I don't think you're going to side tack a lot of rain. And Mimikyu's there, partnered with the Calyrex, and you can go for those Will-O-Wisp instead of Trick Room safely. So that's the top 50 list. I'm just kind of going over why I think it makes some sense. And then we have, okay, hold on. Where is the top 100? So I know he did another one on the top 100, so let me try to find that real quick. Is this it? No. I think this was it. Maybe. Yeah, here we go. Here's top 100. So you see, I'm not going to go over this list because I don't think nothing's important. Nidoking's basically just a worse, Nidoking's just a worse Landorus in my opinion. Nothing strikes me as crazy here. Obviously, you have some like Zygarde, stuff like that. Sableye. I'm not going to go over really anything here, except one thing. Arachnoquid. I've talked about Arachnoquid, but I expect them on to rise in usage. I've actually seen it rise in usage myself, so expect that. Let's talk about some upcoming tournaments. So like we talked about the metagame, we see where the metagame's going, we see a lot of the top mons, and it makes sense, right? Obviously this metagame is very good. Now I actually do have this cut off a little bit, but let's talk about some upcoming tournaments. So we have the Battle Frontier Season 10 Challenge, which has 141 players signed up already, and I'm expecting it to maybe get 200. We have Mount Silver still doing tournaments. We have the World Cup coming out, so expect there to be a lot of tournaments. And look at this. Saturday, July 10th. Oh, that's Poland. There's a World Cup July 24th that has, I think, 140 players signed up or something like that, which is pretty insane. So expect that to be really popular as well. So we do have some nice and upcoming tournaments before the season officially starts. So we're gonna, yeah, I actually think it looks pretty promising. So with all that being said, with me explaining the mons and the meta, what they do and how they kind of relate to one another, what do I think of the metagame right now? That's a tough call, but I honestly think Dynamax being gone is good. It does open up the way for some Pokemon to be pretty powerful, such as Xerneas and Zacian, but you're going to have that in any metagame, and from my experience, at least right now, no matchup has felt too one-sided, no matchup has felt too strong, and obviously there are going to be times when you can just one-shot the Zern, win the game, and there are other times when the Zern gets set up and just sweeps you. But I think Dynamax being gone just opens the floodgates for a completely different metagame to develop, for new Pokemon to actually be good, like Volcarona, like Xerneas, like Arachnoid. All those Pokemon, and Mienshao, okay, Mienshao was decent, but all those Pokemon that you wouldn't really see before are now pretty viable. And so I think it opens up the floodgates for a new metagame. I'm actually pretty happy with it. I think it's a good metagame. I think people should obviously give it a try and understand that, yeah, obviously things are going to be broken. There are Pokemon that are going to be broken no matter what. Obviously, as soon as you get rid of Dynamax and some of the usage is going to skyrocket. We know that. We just know that, right? And Sonora is back at 60% usage. There's a reason why. There's a reason why, guys. But I think this format is actually pretty good. Nothing feels too good over the other one, at least right now. I feel like all of them have their checks and balances to one another. And obviously, the four that are the strongest are the Xerneas, the Zacian, the Kyogre, and the Calyrex Shadow. Groudon also being kind of good, but I feel like Groudon is going to take some innovation to get up to that high level. And then we obviously have tournaments coming up that you could sign up for. A lot of tournaments. You can practice on ladder. I know, obviously, the Battle Frontier, Victory Road's World Cup is happening. Mount Silver is running events. Rose Tower is running events. So you guys join those. Unfortunately, I'm just a busy man. Events. Yeah, I'm just busy with work right now and stuff like that, so I won't be able to pick up events or do events all that much. So that's kind of the gist here. Yeah, so I just won't be able to do events all that much. I'm not gonna lie, but I'll try to do it from time to time. I think this metagame is actually pretty good, and I think hopefully we'll be able to actually see this metagame in actual tournaments. I know Chicago held an in-person tournament. So maybe we'll start getting back to some normal tournaments here. I mean, we're probably still gonna have a Players Cup 5 potentially. I don't really know, but hey, we'll see. So what do I think about this metagame? I think it's honestly pretty good. I don't know if there's anything else I want to talk about. Some teams. I already talked about the top teams. I already talked about the main Pokemon. Tier list. I don't feel like doing a tier list. I'm gonna be honest. Tier lists take too long. I don't know what else I need to talk about. We went on over usage stats. How does it compare to Ultra Series? Obviously, Incineroar is still top, and Xerneas is still top. All these Pokemon, Sakataka, Amoonguss, Lele. Yveltal's not as good. Landorus is still pretty good. Metagross being at 10% usage is kind of funny for Ultra Series. Venusaur is still pretty good. Ferrothorn's still good. Stuff like Kartana is decent. Smeargle's completely disappeared. I don't know if Smeargle's in Sword and Shield, but you can see some of the similarities between the two. You can also see a lot of the differences with the new Pokemon added. So it's actually kind of crazy. So what do I think about this format? I already said that a bunch of times. I don't really know. I don't really have much else to say. That was just my thoughts, my ideas on Series 10. I don't really know. I don't really think I have much else to say. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think I have much else to say. Also, I'm tired. Just recording this video, so if you guys liked the video, smash the like button down below. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helped me out. I don't really have anything else to say on this topic, and I'm tired, so I think I'm gonna head the heck out of here. Probably grind some more ladder or play Splatoon 2, something like that. But I did hope you guys enjoyed. And tell me your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about this format? What do you think is going to be the best team? And what team are you going to use for this format? Anyways, guys, I'm really glad. I'll see you all later. Peace.